What is up, gamers? FCast and Chill here. Today I'm going to be talking about the boss Yama and the different strategies and mechanics of the fight. This is a pretty complicated fight, and I would say it might be the hardest fight in the game outside of raids and the Inferno and the Colosseum right now to really master. And so I'm going to get into that. I plan on talking about both solo and duo methods, and things such as like Mage only, a Mage melee hybrid, melee only, and of course the Donofly butterfly method. So we're going to get into all of that, but first I want to start off talking about Yama and his mechanics. Before we get into the mechanics though, should probably talk about gear that you want to bring. So if you're doing a Mage only setup, I recommend having pretty much just the purging staff and your best Mage gear, and then you'll want at least an arc light or an ember light if you have it for the switches for the Judge of Yama. So essentially just Mage setup and then maybe a melee switch or two if you're doing Mage only. If you're doing a melee setup, you'll want your best melee gear, where if you're using Ember Light, you're going to want to make sure you're prioritizing strength bonus generally, with the exception being Oath Plate over Torva is really good for the chest and legs. Then if you're doing, mage switches for that, you're going to want a 3-way mage switch if you're doing the melee setup, where you bring your purging staff, the tormented bracelet, and the occult. And this is so you can one-shot the orbs that'll spawn later, which we'll talk about. And then if you're doing a full mage melee hybrid, you're going to want to bring all your melee gear like I have here, and then also all your mage gear here. So it's a lot of gear slots, but we'll talk about why those are important. And then I would also recommend thralls for the fight, just because that's going to make it go faster. You can also bring runes for death charge, and in one of the methods, you're also going to want to bring nature runes for Ward of Arceus, which we'll talk about later. Alright, so now let's get back to the mechanics of Yama. So the fight with Yama has 3 different phases, and they're all actually a bit distinct, so I'm going to focus on them one at a time. So at the start of phase 1, you're going to see Yama spawn in, and there's going to be 5 different glyphs on the ground. There's going to be 3 that are the same color in the northwest, northeast, and south corners, and then there's going to be the other 2 on the sides. So Yama has 2 different attacks that he can do during these phases, where he'll snap, and the snap will either need to be prayed with mage or ranged. If you see fire coming up around his hand and around your character model right before he snaps, that means you need to pray mage to block the damage. If you see no fire and like more of a black aura around it, then that means you're going to need to pray ranged. One tip is that Yama will always start the phase doing snaps of the type that corresponds to the glyphs on the left and right side of the room, the east and west glyphs here. So at the start of the phase, you can identify, oh, okay, these glyphs are red, which means mage snaps, so you can start off praying mage, or vice versa. So that's pretty nice. Also, Yama has some special attacks in phases 1 and 2. So he's going to say some words above his head, and then he's going to power up with either a red or a purple colored aura, and then launch some missiles that'll fly up in the sky and then fall and hit you. Whenever he does this, you're going to want to stand on the glyph of the corresponding color to block the damage. So if you see the fire missiles come up, you're going to want to stand on one of those red glyphs, and then vice versa for the purple. I will say though, every time you step on a glyph, it'll block all damage from that type of attack for, maybe around 5 seconds or so. But if you stand on a fire glyph, it's actually going to damage you, and the closer that Yama is to that glyph, the more damage you'll take. For the shadow glyphs, when you stand on them, it's going to drain a bit of your prayer. Again, the closer Yama is to that glyph, the more prayer it will drain. So ideally, you want to have Yama a bit away from these glyphs so that when you can see him do his charge up attack, you can run back 4 tiles to the glyph and then get back on Yama after touching it, so you take a little bit less damage. Whenever Yama does one of these special power-up attacks, so either the mage or the shadow attacks, then after that, he's going to change his snap style to the special that he just used. So if he just used a fire special, he's going to do mage snaps until his next special, so you can pray mage. And vice versa. If he does the shadow special, he's going to do ranged snaps until his next special, so you can pray ranged. Also, if you are meleeing Yama, then you want to make sure you have protect from melee on, because his melees can hit very hard. And if you see him do a snap while you're within melee range, then you have time to switch your prayer to whatever prayer you need to do for the type of snap he's doing. And then you can switch back to protect from melee afterwards. But if you're maging and you're not right up on him, then you don't need to worry about switching prayer, and you can just camp whatever prayer based on the special that he just did. Yama can also spawn some flame wheels that will cross the room horizontally, and if these hit you, they'll root you in place and deal about 20 damage. This can be really bad if you get hit by these when you need to run to one of the glyphs to negate one of Yama's specials, because you'll be rooted in place. So ideally, you'll try to avoid these if possible. I will say though, these are considered like fire attacks, and so if you stand on the fire glyph right before they hit you, you'll actually be protected from them. Yama also has an attack where he'll launch a shadow wave coming diagonally towards you, and this, if you step on a shadow glyph, it will block the damage from it, but if not and you get hit by it, it will turn off your prayer and deal about 20 damage to you. The way I usually deal with these shadow walls is when they're about 2 tiles from me diagonally like this, I will click past them to run diagonally through them, and you should be able to get past it every time. It will take a little bit of practice to get the timing down, but if you wait until it's about 2 tiles away from you diagonally and then click diagonally through it, you should be good every time. The last attack Yama can do in phase 1 is that he can summon 2 different colored balls. So you'll see these orbs, one of them will be a shadow orb and one will be a flame orb. You'll want to kill these with a purging staff, because if you're using Mage, then you're guaranteed to do your max hit on it, so you definitely don't want to melee these. If you have the 3-way switch that we talked about earlier with your purging staff, occult, and tormented bracelet, you'll always be able to 2-shot these orbs. Also, if you use the purging staff special for the second attack, then it won't delay you as much, and you can get another attack in afterwards a bit quicker, since that purging staff special lets you attack 2 ticks earlier for your next attack. For these balls, you also can stand on the glyphs to negate the damage. So for example, if you kill off the shadow ball here, and then leave the mage one alive, the flame ball, you could just stand on the fire glyph a little bit before the bar fills up, and then it'll block the damage from it. You could also just stand on 2 different glyphs to make sure you block the damage from both balls, but if you're doing that, it'll clear out a lot of the glyphs in the room, and you won't have as many to block Yama's special attacks. Phase 2 is actually pretty much the same thing as phase 1, with one difference. Yama has changed his special attacks, and instead of launching missiles slowly in the air that come fall on you, they're a lot faster. So the shadow attack, he'll just launch a big orb straight at you, and for the flame attack, he'll launch a meteor that will root you in place and turn off your run, and then it'll kill you very quickly if you're not protected. These things can hit in the ballpark of 100, so you want to make sure you get on that flame glyph to protect from it. In phase 2, whenever I know he's going to do a fire special next, I pretty much always try to stand 1 tile next to the center of the fire glyph, just so, you know, if I get my run turned off and rooted in place, I can still move there to negate the meteor before it lands on me. One other thing is he's always going to alternate specials each phase, so he's always going to start off doing the special that has 3 glyphs on the floor each phase. Remember the northwest, northeast, and south position. And then after that special, he'll always switch to the other one and then just keep going back and forth. Phase 3 is a bit challenging because the fight has totally changed from the first 2 phases. He'll stop doing the specials and all the glyphs are turned off in the room too, so you will no longer have any protection. He will continually snap between doing a flame snap and a range snap and alternate each time. So whenever you protect against a flame snap, you know you to change your prayer to range and vice versa, so you can continue to block the damage. He will also start launching fireballs that fall from the sky at you. You can dodge these by stepping out of the way whenever you see a horizontal line of fireballs. If you step perpendicular to it, you can see that you'll walk out of the range of that splash when they hit the ground. And same for the diagonal ones, just step perpendicular. And while he's doing these fireballs, he'll also be sending shadow wave after shadow wave at you. So it is really a lot to focus on, but that's what makes this fight challenging. And, you know, one thing that's a little tricky is I did say that he'll alternate his snaps between mage and range every time, but sometimes he'll also snap when he's launching the fireballs. So you need to make sure you don't change your prayer when it's just a fireball snap. So only change your prayer back and forth when you see the hit splat on your character, knowing that he did an aggressive snap at you. And if you can successfully dodge all these attacks and stay alive while maging and staying out of range, you will kill him. He does also spawn orbs during this phase, but the orbs are actually half health from before. So So if you switch to your Purging Staff, Occult, and Tormented Bracelet, you'll be able to one-shot them, and then just get back on the boss afterwards. If you stay within melee range during P3 though, his mechanics change completely during this third phase. He'll actually not drop fireballs on you at all, and instead, every time he melees someone, he'll spawn an orb. And so then you can switch to your Purging Staff, Occult, and Tormented Bracelet, use the special on it to kill the orb, and then go back to your melee setup and go back to meleeing. I definitely don't recommend doing this for solo, but it can be pretty good for a duo if you have 2 people to help out with the orbs. You can split the room, have one person killing 2 orbs on one side and the other person killing the orbs on the other side, and just meleeing the boss. That said, in this phase 3, he can hit up to, I believe it's a 24 through prayer with his melee attack. So this is a time where if you're doing this strategy, you're going to want to bring the Ward of Arceus so that you can reduce his damage, because that will lower damage from demons by about 10%. So it helps a little bit. Alright, so that's it for Yama's mechanics. Now let's actually get into the strategies and different methods you can do. So there's really, I would categorize the methods into a few different ones. There's going to be Mage only, which is going to probably be the easiest of the methods, but the slowest. Then there's going to be a Mage and Melee hybrid, where you'll melee the first 2 phases, and then switch to doing Mage for phase 3. This will be a bit faster than Mage only, but still not as fast as it could be. Then there's going to be this Melee only method, where you melee phases 1 and 2, and then phase 3 you can melee in your duo and split the room, killing the orbs as they spawn. And this is going to be even faster than that Mage Melee hybrid. And then the final method is going to be melee only, where you're doing a method called the Donofly, where you're doing a butterfly, where you're actually stepping out of Yama's melee range whenever he attacks. So he'll use fireballs on you, but you're getting back into range so you can attack. So you're essentially just running back and forth in a set pattern to dodge all the fireballs and still keep meleeing Yama the whole time. This is better than Maging phase 3 because melee DPS is so much more if you have an Ember Light. It's not even close. You want to melee the boss as much as possible for fast kills. So really there's 4 different methods here, and you can do most of them either solo or duo. And so I'm going to get into them, talk about, how I do these methods, and a little bit of strategy with some examples too. So first we're going to start off with a Mage only kill, and so for this I'm bringing a 5-way melee switch just to deal with the Judge of Yama, which is what you do between phases. And then I'm also bringing a Strength Potion just so my max hit's higher there. I'm also bringing an Antidote ++ for the anti-poison, because Yama's poison does a shit ton of damage. We're going to start off and make sure we've casted Mark of Darkness, since that makes you do a lot more damage with Mage, and we're going to start off the fight. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to notice that the sigils on the west and east are the Shadow Sigil, so I need to pray ranged to avoid damage from his snaps. Also, I know he's going to do a fire special first. So then I stand on the fire glyph as he launches it. Since he just did a fire special, now I know all his snaps are going to be Mage snaps until his next special. So I switch my prayer to Mage. I also know since he keeps alternating the specials, he's going to do a Shadow special next. So I position myself right next to the Shadow special. He does the balls next, and so I'm going to pause here, and whenever he does this ball attack, the way I deal with it in a solo is I will always kill the ball that there's only 2 sigils of on the floor. So if you remember, we had 3 fire sigils to start off and only 2 shadow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kill the shadow ball, and then after that I'm going to step on one of the fire sigils to negate the damage. So I'll wait till the ball is almost full and then step on it, and that's going to negate the fire damage from when the sigil pops. Yama's going to still do a shadow special next because he had last done a fire special, so I position myself next to the shadow sigil. And then as he launches that up, I'll stand on it and change my prayer to range now, since he's going to be doing range snaps. Since he just did a shadow special, I'm going to move over to the fire sigil, and I know that he's going to now do a fire special next. So I'm just going to wait here by the sigil so I can stand on it whenever he does it. A wave comes at me, so I walk through it, like I mentioned before, and then I step on the sigil as he does his special, and change my prayer to Mage. Again, he just did a fire special, so I know he's going to do a shadow special next. So I position myself next to this shadow sigil, and I'm just going to wait for that. Step out of the way of these flame wheels, and then I'll stand on the sigil. One thing to note, the tick that you stand on a sigil and activate it, you will be immune to damage from those flame wheels. So if they're in the way, you can just step on the sigil and then immediately step out of the way, and you shouldn't get hit by them. We have another shadow wall coming, so I'm going to walk through it after stepping on the flame sigil to negate the damage, and then change my prayer to Mage again. And now I've done enough damage to where he should be phased soon. And you can see the sigils had respawned that I had used earlier already. So now is the Judge of Yama phase, and for this, you essentially just play hopscotch and hop on the stones across the field, and then you just have to alternate between two different attack styles hitting the Judge. So I like to do melee and mage, so you can see I'm doing that too. If you also stand within the Judge of Yama when he launches his fireball, then it's actually going to hurt him when it lands, so you can keep stepping in and out to kill him slightly faster. Alright, so now we're on phase 2, and again, I'm going to pause here. We know that he's going to start doing ranged attacks, since the 2 sigils on the east and west are shadow sigils, so he's going to do range snaps, so I'm going to pray ranged. Also, we know since the other 3 sigils are fire, he's going to start off doing a fire special attack. And remember, for phase 2, these fire special attacks are going to be dropping a meteor on you, so you really need to make sure you're right next to the sigil when this happens so you can get to it in time. He drops the meteor after doing an attack, and then you can see I immediately start spam clicking the fire sigil to block it. Again, I need to change my prayer to Mage because, you know, he just used his fire sigil, so now he's going to do Mage snaps. And then I'm going to position myself next to the shadow sigil to make sure that I can stand on it whenever he does his shadow attack. Remember, for phase 2, his specials hit faster than they do in phase 1, so you need to be ready. I'm going to dodge these shadow walls, and he spawned the balls again. Remember that there were 3 fire sigils on this phase, so I'm going to kill the shadow ball first, and then stand on the fire sigil to negate the damage from the ball. And then I'm going to make my way back over to the shadow sigil because that's the special he's going to do next because he continues to alternate. Block that damage, and now I'm going to change my prayer to ranged. And then I need to make my way back over to the fire sigil. And notice I'm being careful to not get within melee range because he can hit very hard with melee off prayer. So now I'm ready to stand on this fire sigil. He does his fire special, so I stand on it, dodge the shadow wall, and then I switch my prayer to Mage to now block the Mage snaps. Run through that shadow wall as well, and then we're going to wait by here since we know he's going to do a shadow special next. So really it is pretty much the same as phase 1. It's just that we need to make sure that we're conscious of having less time to react to the specials. Whenever my heart runs out, I make sure to click it again quickly so that I can continue doing damage. It helps with the accuracy a lot. And now we're done with phase 2 and back to the Judge of Yama. So again, you just play hopscotch to jump across. You can shoot him with the Mage while you're halfway across and then switch to melee and then just keep switching back and forth and standing within his hitbox so he spawns fireballs on himself. And again, you can use the strength pot here to make your melee do a little bit more damage. Every time you attack the Judge, it's guaranteed to do your max hit. Alright, so that's it for the Judge, and now on to phase 3. Remember, for phase 3, he's going to alternate doing a Mage snap and a range snap back and forth, starting with the opposite of whatever he did last. I don't remember what he did last, so I'm just going to react to it. So I start off, and I see him lift his hand, and there's no... first he summons fireballs, so I'm stepping perpendicular to dodge them, and as I'm doing that, you can see he did a fire snap, so I prayed Mage. Then I switched my prayer to range, and then he did a normal snap, so I'm back to Mage. So I'm just going to keep alternating like that. I summon a Thrall too to help out with some extra damage. The shadow wall comes at me, so again I step through it when it's 2 tiles away like this, and just keep switching my prayer. There's the fire snap, so my prayer is going back to range. And there's the fireballs, so we're just going to sidestep out of the way. If the fireballs come when it's a hectic time with the shadow waves as well, you can just run in circles around him and run away from them. I'm going to deal with these balls and get back on the boss, just sidestepping these fireballs by moving perpendicular to them. He did a shadow snap, so back to Mage prayer. Step through and change my prayer. So this part is a lot to focus on, especially for newer players. You can see I just kind of run away there since I was a little bit hectic. And you can see I'm just going diagonally through these as they get 2 tiles away from me, just back and forth, making sure to change my prayer whenever he does a snap. sidestepping fireballs. And again, you don't have to do this perfectly to get the kills. It's going to take a lot of practice to be able to do this without making any mistakes. But if you have plenty of food with you, you should be good. And I will say that, you know, if you're doing a duo, which is the exact same strategy, just the DPS is going to be double, so he'll die twice as fast. So again, we're going to zigzag back and forth here. I'm just running away from the fireballs because things are getting a little bit hectic here. And that's it for the kill. So that's how you can deal with Mage only Yama. Really the key things you need to know how to do are to run away and dodge those fireballs and make sure you're stepping through the shadow waves. If you ever mess up the shadow waves, make sure you get your prayer back on ASAP, because it will disable your overhead protection prayer. Now, that's the Mage only kill, but I don't recommend doing Mage only unless you're just first learning the mechanics. So let's actually get into how you're going to be doing the Yama fights once you're a little bit more experienced, and that's going to be using melee. So with melee, you can do melee for phases 1 and 2, and then do a hybrid where you mage phase 3, which is kind of the next step in the learning cycle after you get the mage only down. But after that, then you're going to want to do another melee method where you melee all 3 phases. That's called the NoChoc method. And I'm going to walk through this. So let's show an example kill. Note that this NoChoc melee method is going to be a duo only method. You will not be doing this in solos because you cannot deal with the balls in phase 3 if you're soloing the boss. So after you've learned the mage and melee hybrid method, the next step I would recommend is learning this NoChoc method, named after the guy that made a video on it. So the way it works is you just melee the first 2 phases, and then you from phase 3, you also melee it, but split the orbs that spawn. One person will kill the orbs on the west, and the other kills the orbs on the east. So let's go ahead and go through an example. So we start off the kill, and I'm going to start in melee range, and you want to use some Emberlight specs on him too. And so I'm just going to protect from melee, and if I see him snap, then I'm going to switch to whatever style his snaps will be. He just did a fire special, so any snaps will be a mage prayer. So again, I'm just going to keep praying melee and getting ready to switch my prayer if needed. Duos with melee, you can see the DPS is pretty crazy compared to the solo I was doing before. Alright, so he summons the orbs, but he's actually close enough to being phased here that we just stay on him. You can see there I'm swapping my prayer to mage as he does those fire snaps, and then back to melee after the hit splat appears on me. And that's it for phase 1. Extremely fast compared to the mage solo. Again, we're going to play hopscotch here, shoot him from halfway there, switch back to the melee gear, and then just, you know, do our little 3-way switch here. And again, remember we bring this 3-way switch for dealing with the orbs, since you can one-shot them in P3. So now P2's starting. We know that he's going to do a fire special immediately. Remember, these meteors, you can't really move once they spawn, so I'm going to try to get close. And then I step on the sigil, and now we know if he does any snaps, they're going to be mage, because he just did a fire special. And I make my way over to this sigil. There's the snap, so I switch my prayer and then switch back. And we're just DPSing him down. We have a couple waves coming up, so I'm gonna just run through them like this to dodge them. And he summoned the orbs, but again, he's really close to phasing, so we're not even gonna bother, and we're just gonna keep DPSing him. And then we're back to the Judge of Yama. Same thing as before, hopscotch, shoot, and then move out of the way of that fireball and get back on the boss. Stand in him so he like launches some fireballs on himself. And now we're on phase 3. So this is the part that's going to be unique to this method. So the guy I'm playing with called the east side, so I'm going to go ahead and move west here and make sure I get the west balls. So I'm also going to cast Ward of Arceus, because that's going to reduce the melee damage. So whenever a ball spawns, I just do my 3-way switch to my mage gear, click my spec bubble, and then click the ball to kill it in one shot, and then just back on the boss with melee. And we're just going to keep doing that every time one of the balls spawn on the west side. Dodge the waves, and then just go back to what I was doing before, meleeing him, switching to my mage gear, killing the balls. And this way, if both people take their side, you can deal with the balls very easily, and it's still a pretty fast kill. That was actually a PB for my duo partner, and I got some oath plate shards, very nice. So really with this, it's just, making sure both people stay on top of their balls and keep meleeing the boss. You just have to remember the boss can hit pretty hard through melee, so you might need to eat up if needed. One thing I forgot to do there with the NoChoc method is typically you want to use Death Charge, since you'll get a bunch of your spec back as you kill the orbs, but I don't usually do this method, so I'm not used to Death Charging here. But yeah, that helps out a lot. And that's it for the NoChoc method. So there's actually another method I want to show you that's even faster than this one, and it's called the Donofly. And the way that you're going to do this is you're going to continually melee through all of phase 3, so you don't have to stop attacking to deal with any balls that spawn. So this is going to be really, really useful for just getting faster kills, and it's extremely fun to do. The Donofly method is actually a bit challenging to learn in duos, so I would recommend learning it in a solo at first. You can bring a Mage melee hybrid and just do the method meleeing until you mess up, and then switch to Mage and finish out the kill. And once you get the basics of the method down, then you can switch to doing it in duos. But duos have a little bit of an extra added difficulty because sometimes one player will be delayed a tick when they spawn in on P3, so you have to worry about getting in sync before you can actually do it. So the Donofly method is essentially just walking on specific tiles on specific ticks and attacking the boss. And it's going to take some practice to do, and you have to memorize a pretty long cycle. But I use all these tile markers here, and I can explain the numbering and the color coding in a little bit. The tile markers are in the description for you to import. And I'll just talk through the Donofly once or twice, and then I'll do a full example kill where I show from start to finish phase 1, phase 2, and then phase 3 solo doing the Donofly. And then we'll finish off the video with me talking about how to get in sync for the Donofly in duos. So now I'm going to walk you through the full series of movements that you need to do the Donofly in a solo. Note that in a duo, it is a lot faster since you have double the DPS, so you don't have to go nearly as long in the cycle. So once you learn how to get in sync in a duo, it won't be as bad and there won't be as much to memorize. So this may feel a little bit overwhelming with how much there is to memorize, but believe me that it comes faster than you would think through practice. And it's actually similar in difficulty to a lot of the God Wars dungeon methods where you're running to specific tiles, attacking, and then continuing to run. So the first thing that you need to do is when you're starting the Donofly right after killing the Judge of Yama after phase 2, when phase 3 starts, you want to spam click this tile that I have labeled as delay. The goal is to attack Yama on the third possible tick after you spawn in. So ideally, after 2 movements of spam clicking, you'll get to the delay tile, and then you can immediately click to attack Yama. If you happen to spawn in close enough to where you get to the delay tile after just 1 tick instead of 2, then you need to wait for 1 tick before attacking Yama, so that you attack him on the third, like this. Once you attack Yama to start the cycle, you can see that your true tile will then be on that start square. So then what you do is right after you attack, you will move back to 1. When your true tile gets to 1, you'll click to attack Yama again. Then after your attack starts, then you'll immediately click to tile 2. Once your true tile gets to tile 2, you'll click Yama to attack. Immediately after your attack starts, you'll click to tile 3. And then once your true tile gets to tile 3, you'll click to attack Yama. Immediately after you attack, you'll first click to 4 here, and then click to 4.1. The reason with this specific movement is so you're dodging the fireball blasts. And then once you get to tile 4.1, you have to actually wait a tick. Now, some people might struggle with waiting here just because the timing's a little different than everywhere else in the cycle, but I kind of like it because it gives you an opportunity to switch your prayer, since remember during this, you have to flip your prayer back and forth every time he snaps and damages you. So you move to 4.1, switch your prayer if you need to, and then click to attack Yama after a tick. Then once your attack hits, you immediately click to start, and then once you get to start, you click to attack again. And that's the basic beginner cycle. So then you click to attack, move to 1, attack, move back to 2, and so on. And so you'll do this for a little bit until the first set of balls come out. If you do this without messing up, you'll automatically dodge these first set of waves. So as you can see here. And then so after doing this cycle, you can see a little bit later, these first set of balls come out when you're over on the 4.1 tile. Now to deal with these first set of balls, what you're going to do is after you attack Yama, you will then move to the start tile and attack him again. Then you'll step back to the delay tile. Immediately equip your 3-way Mage switch and click one of the balls. Also make sure you have Mark of Darkness on for this. If you don't, you won't one-shot the balls, so I like to make sure I use Mark of Darkness on that Judge of Yama before phase 3 starts. After you attack the first ball, you'll move over to this tile I have marked Orb 2 and immediately click the second ball. Then click your special attack bubble if you have at least 25 spec energy. If you don't have enough energy to do a special attack, that's okay. You'll just miss one attack, but you'll be able to stay in the cycle. So after you attack the second ball, immediately re-equip all your melee gear. Then this is the hard part here. You have to wait on this Orb 2 tile until you hear the snap. And after you hear his snap, you wait and click on the second tick. So once you hear the snap, you'll count 1 tick of doing nothing. Then on tick 2, you click to attack him. And then immediately when your character's true tile gets up on him, you're going to click to this green tile next, and then to 4.1. And then you're going to wait 1 tick on 4.1, and then click back on the boss and move to the start tile. The reason you move to that green tile before going to 4.1 instead of just going to 4 and then 4.1 is to dodge one of the blasts from the fireball. After attacking on start, then you'll move back to 1, and then you're back in the cycle for now. So again, you just like keep doing your 1-2 thing, you're going to automatically dodge those waves. And then now once you get back to 4.1 and attack again and go back to start, you have a second set of waves coming. So you have to be ready to dodge these, which is a little bit different than what you've been doing. So after you get back to the start tile and you attack Yama, immediately you'll back up to the delay tile, then move over to the 1 here, and then click on Yama to attack on the 3 tile. Right after you attack on the 3, you're going to control walk back to the 1, then over to the delay tile. So you're going to take 4 ticks to walk from 3 to the delay, control walking. Once you get to delay, you'll click to attack him again on start, and then immediately move to the green 3 tile right after you attack. And then you can wait here on the green 3 and attack Yama again. Once your attack hits, then you can move on to 4 and then 4.1. And then this is pretty much back to the basic cycle that you have. Once you wait a tick on 4.1, you attack Yama again and move to the start. Then attack Yama and move to 1. Note that this time when you move to 1, right after dodging the double wave, you have to pause for 1 extra tick on 1. Because if you don't, you're going to get blown up by the fireball splash. So notice how once I do the double wave dodge, I get back in the cycle, attack on start, then come back to 1, and then I pause for a tick before clicking. Right after this, the second set of balls is going to spawn. To deal with these 2 balls, first I'll move to this blue colored tile in between the delay and 1 and equip my 3-way Mage switch and click the first ball immediately. As soon as that attack goes through, I'll move to this other blue tile I have labeled up here, and then you click your spec on the purging staff. So you have to make sure that you have at least 25 special attack energy for your purging staff spec at this point, and you'll use that spec on the second ball. The reason you do the spec is so that you can do a melee attack just 3 ticks after. Right after doing your spec, you're going to equip your melee gear again, and then 3 ticks after you do your spec, you want to attack Yama. So you can see my attack hit 3 ticks after. Then immediately when you attack, move to tile 3, attack again, and then move to 4.1, pause a tick here like normal, and then you're back in the standard cycle, and it's actually loops. Now you're going to have this same double wave again that you had earlier. So you have the 2 waves crossing here, you go through, and then after you come back, then you see the double wave again where you attack on start, move back to delay over to 1. And so I recommend pausing and watching that clip that I just did, talking through everything in slow motion a few times, and just make sure you memorize each step, because it is really a lot to learn. The way I was doing it when I was learning is first I would learn the Donofly up until the first set of balls came out, and then when they came out, I would switch to maging the rest of the kill, and I'd practice that until I got it down. Then after I got that down, I would keep doing the Donofly and learn how to deal with the first set of balls, and then get back in the cycle and do that until the second set of balls came out. And then I would practice that a lot and keep doing that. And then I would use Mage to finish the kill off until I got comfortable there. And then after I kind of memorized all that, then I put the whole thing together. So it isn't going to be something you just go in there and get it in one kill. This is a bit of an advanced method, but it really isn't as bad as it looks if you put the practice in. So just make sure you learn which ticks to wait on certain tiles, which tiles to move, which ticks to attack the balls with your purging staff, and that's really it. If you're doing this method in duo with the Donofly, what's typical is you'll just, go through the Donofly until the first set of balls come out, and then once that happens, you can actually just switch to the NoChoc method, split the room, pray melee, and kill the balls and just finish off the boss. He'll likely almost be dead at that point in a duo. There is one other thing I want to talk about while going through the duos, and that is the tick delay. So occasionally when one person spawns in the room for P3, they're going to be delayed 1 tick compared to the other player. And this can be really frustrating because if you're delayed a tick, then you can't really get into the Donofly cycle normally, or else you're going to get meleeed and mess it up. So whenever you're doing Donofly for a duo, the important thing to note is you need to learn how to identify if either of you were delayed a tick, and then know how to react if you were. So the way that I like to do this is me and my partner Ass Captain, who changed his name to Yama Enjoyer for the update. We both spam click the delay tile right when we spawn in on P3. If we both start moving at the same time and then get to the delay tile, we know that neither of us was delayed. And so then we both just do the Donofly method as if we were soloing. So the same, make sure you attack Yama on the 3rd tick and get in the cycle. If one of us notices that our character model starts moving after the other person's, then we know, okay, well, we were delayed 1 tick, so we can't just go in normally or we're going to get meleeed. So whoever noticed that they were delayed by 1 tick, it is going to be their job to try to get into cycle with the other person. The other person who was not delayed just does the cycle as normal as if they were soloing. So the person who got the delay, usually what we'll do is we'll move to tile 1 here. And then as the other person's character model is crossing the line onto tile 1, we'll click to attack the boss. Then after attacking, wait 1 tick, and then click to 2. And then you should be in sync. If you actually mess this up, and you notice that you're 1 tick behind the other person as you start running to 2, it's pretty easy to fix actually. You could just not run all the way to 2, and then when you're right next to 2 on your true tile instead of all the way there, you can just click to attack the boss and turn around and then get into the cycle. So that'll help you catch up if you end up 1 tick behind. But that's really it. It's important to identify who got the delay and then how to get into sync with it. But if you're doing this duo Donofly, you usually don't have to worry about dealing with all the sets of balls just because the boss dies so quickly. And yeah, that's it for the Donofly. It is a lot to learn, and I'm going to show you an example now of a solo doing a full kill so we can see the whole thing. Alright, we're going to start off here, and the first thing I'll do before starting the fight is I'm going to equip my purging staff and cast Mark of Darkness, since that makes the mark last a lot longer. And then we're going to challenge Yama and sit my super combat. I'll move to this purple 3 tile because it's 4 ticks away from the shadow sigil. Remember, I need to be ready to pray Mage if he does any snaps. And now he did his shadow special, so I hit that tile. And now I'm going to pray ranged if he does any snaps right now. I've moved to where I'm 4 tiles away from the fire sigil so that I can move back to it and then attack him again once he does it. Pray range there to block the snap damage. Make sure to move out of the way of the flame wheels. Step on the fire sigil. And then I'm going to drag him 1 tile over this way so that now when I'm standing on this side, I'll be 4 tiles away from the shadow sigil. And just making sure to pray against any snaps that he does. And then I have this shadow wave coming at me, but I can just step on this shadow sigil since he did a special, and that's going to block damage from the shadow wave as well. Now I'm going to drag him over here to 4 tiles from the flame sigil since we know a flame special will be next. And just going to hang out here, getting ready to pray against any snaps if he does them. And there's the flame special attack, so we move back and then, start attacking him again. Then we're just going to move over here to where we're in range of the shadow sigil, but that's it for phase 1. So now we're going to hopscotch across these rocks. Once we get 3 rows in, we're going to equip the staff and shoot, and then equip our melee weapon again. And we're going to stand on top of the boss to make sure that he's fireballing himself. And just keep doing this and switching. Apparently I can't click and I forgot to melee there, but you know, it happens. Alright, and we're just going to keep switching back and forth, making him fireball himself, and he's about to die. So then now we're going back to the next phase. Now's a good time to eat too, so you can see I eat a Karen bomb. And then put my prayers on, and we attack the boss. We know that there's going to be a shadow special first, since that's the one that there's 3 of, so we move back to go ahead and hit that as he starts his special attack. And then remember, because of the meteors, we need to make sure we're standing right next to the fire sigil. And just make sure you do not get hit by the flame wheels coming across the arena, because they will root you in place and the meteor will kill you. So just keep an eye on all of those and make sure you can get to the fire sigil without getting hit. And then that's going to block the meteor, and then we're going to move over here to where we can get to the shadow sigil. So again, just DPSing the boss. And we know that the phase transition happens in the mid to low 800s, so just hoping we can get there soon. We're going to dodge that shadow wave and then step on the shadow sigil to dodge the special and the second wave. Then we're going to move over here, because remember, we want to be 1 tile within the fire sigil whenever the meteor attack is coming, so we're preparing for that. Make sure that the flame wheels are not going to hit us, so just zooming out enough to see those, and then we move on to the fire sigil and attack, and change our prayer for the snap there, and just keep attacking. Now we've got him down low enough to where he's about to phase transition, and should just be in a second now. There it is. So now we can turn our prayers off. I also like to make sure my camera's angled north when the Judge of Yama part starts, just so that it's consistent with which way I'm looking. And we hit him, and then we're going to do the same thing again, where we just kind of like stand on him, make him fireball himself, running in and out, and just swapping between doing a mage attack and a melee attack. And then don't forget, here you can equip your scepter and do a Mark of Darkness if you haven't already. Then we're going to heal up and get ready for the Donofly. It took me 2 ticks to get to the delay, so we just go into the cycle as normal. I resummon my Thrall, and then we're just going to look and make sure we can react to the snaps. So we started off with the range snap, so we switched to Mage here. Then when we pause on the start tile, switch to range. And then just, you know, going to keep switching our prayer every time he does this aggressive snap attack. So there was one. So on 4.1, when we pause, we switch to Mage. Go back to the start, then switch again. You can notice I usually switch my prayer on the start tile or the 4.1 tile, because you're going to pause on both of those for a tick while you're waiting. So first set of balls come out, so we're going to back up to this delay tile, kill the first one, then move over here to orb 2 and kill the second, while still switching our prayer. Wait 2 ticks after he snaps, and then move back in and get back in the cycle, as I explained in the prior part. And then we're just getting ready to do the double wave dodge. And yeah, this is really it. Once you learn this Donofly cycle, the boss becomes very easy, and you can just kind of walk through everything. We're setting up for the double flame, or the shadow wall skip, but he actually died already. And that was it, a solo in 453, so not bad at all. And that's really it for Yama. I know there's going to be some more advanced strategies that come out in the coming weeks, because this is a pretty new boss, and I'm really looking forward to the contracts that are coming out soon that are going to kind of bump up the difficulty of this guy. But this is how I'm grinding him for now. Just been doing the solos with this method and doing duos with the Donofly method with my friend Ask Captain whenever he's around. But yeah, hopefully I can get some drops soon. Hopefully you guys get some good luck at Yama too. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And if you like the video, you know, feel free to like and subscribe if you want to see more content. And I really appreciate the support. And good luck at Yama, everyone. I hope that you all have an excellent day.